Thank you, Janma. So I'm Delia Cortez-Giral, surgical oncologist and member of the steering committee of EYSAC. So on behalf of the European Society of Surgical Oncology and EYSAC, I'd like to welcome all the surgeons joining us now for this webinar on social media for surgeons. I also like to welcome our speakers. We have today Professor Steven Wexner from Florida, United States. We have Professor Antonio de Lacy from Barcelona, Spain, Professor Julio Mayol from Madrid, Spain, Professor Manish Chand from London, United Kingdom, and Professor Venkmani Krishnan from Chennai, India. Social media is already an essential tool for surgeons, and during the next hour, all these experts are going to share with you their knowledge. I really hope you will enjoy this experience. And first of all, it's my pleasure to introduce, and it's very special for me, to introduce Professor Steven Wexner. Professor Steven Wexner is my mentor and a very close friend. He's the head of digestive services of the Cleveland Clinic, Florida. He's regent of the American College of Surgeons, and he has been one of the pioneers regarding social media as a tool for surgical education. He is going to talk us about the current status and future directions of social media. So thank you very much, Steven, for joining us.
Thank you very much, Delia, for having me with you today. I'm going to try to share my screen with you, which should be now getting shared. So thank you very much. It's an honor and privilege. I'm delighted to support the meeting that you're chairing today. Happy to be speaking with you and with many of my friends, colleagues, and other mentees. You've got a fantastic faculty of people who collaborate together. I congratulate you for it. And in fact, we collaborate together in large measure because of social media. I think I can honestly say that were it not for social media, the only person with whom I previously had a collaborative relationship was my brother, Antonio Lacy. Everyone else in some format has been met through social media, directly or indirectly. And that's the power of social media. So I just want to give a brief overview. I don't want to be redundant because each of the speakers is addressing a specific facet of social media, and each of the faculty could speak on any of these different platforms, except Instagram, which is clearly your domain. But the rest of us on Facebook and on Twitter and LinkedIn are quite active. So I'm not going to really review what the process is for each of these social media platforms. What I do want to suggest, though, is that these platforms allow to transcend global boundaries. So time zones really become irrelevant, even if something is posted or sent in the middle of the night somewhere, it's the middle of the day somewhere else, and ultimately people respond. And secondly, it really eliminates, as long as people are comfortable communicating in English or Spanish for the most part, it eliminates a lot of boundaries. So time boundaries, geographic boundaries, and also age boundaries. And that's one of the wonderful things about it. The fact that I have gotten to work with and mentor people who are starting their careers, or in many cases, people still in training, not only in the US, but throughout the world, that I don't know that they would have felt comfortable approaching me before social media. But social media has changed the way people are comfortable. If we look at use of social media, Facebook and YouTube are really at the top of the list, and the platform that I use, Twitter, is certainly lower down, but these are millions and millions and hundreds of millions of users of each of these platforms every day. In fact, if you look in a minute, one single minute in the internet, for example, Google, 4.1 million queries, but let's limit to social media. Facebook, 1.3 million people logged on. YouTube, looking at posted videos, 4.7. This is per minute around the world. Staggering numbers, 200,000 people tweeting and so on. Powerful, powerful platform, which we can harness to help education, to help communication, to help collaboration. It's only increasing. I joined Twitter in 2012, for example, and you can see since that time there's roughly almost threefold increase in the number of people using social media. It continues to go up. The platforms may morph, some being more or less popular, but engagement continues. Interestingly, despite Facebook being the #1 platform globally for social media, Twitter is ahead of Facebook for physicians. At least that's what was reported 4 years ago, perhaps because it's shorter and easier, and in the busy days we have, we can't necessarily pore over Facebook posts, but we can tweet and respond to tweets, and embedded within tweets we can have hyperlinks to useful information. LinkedIn is very popular, and I like to think of LinkedIn as the sort of Facebook for business, if you will. Very professional, and for younger people, job hunting, this is the main vehicle that people use. They may network on LinkedIn through where they went to school and an alumni network. They may network through a society to which they belong. They may network through a given employer. And it's a way to keep one's resume up to date and to communicate. But it's also a very important educational tool for surgeons because we can post information on it, such as I tend to do as I read articles. I think, oh, this is a good one to share because either it's a well-done study, or it's one of my alumni or mentees who have done the study, or it's novel, or it refutes something we think is true, whatever the case may be. So I review the article. It forces me to really read it as if I'm presenting a journal club, and I then add to it my own conclusion. Facebook, of course, being the most widely used platform in the world, everybody is familiar with it. One limitation of Facebook, of course, is the number of friends. Unlike Twitter, unlike LinkedIn, perhaps unlike Instagram, Facebook is limited to 5,000 friends, so it gets a bit awkward in my view when somebody who wants to work with you and interact with you asks you to friend and you can't because you've got 5,000 and you've got to keep clearing it out. But it is highly professionally used, and you can go to Facebook pages where people can just like, but you can't really friend them. JAMA Surgery, for example, is one of the network of the JAMA publications, JAMA Current, JAMA Surgery, JAMA Oncology, and so on, which has a hugely active social media presence. Typically, it's younger surgeons involved, which is interesting that you've got Antonio and me here today at Julio, because I think we're slightly anomalous. A lot of people who have been out practicing 30 plus years are not as engaged as people who are finishing training. People who are engaged, as you are, Dr. Cortez-Gural, with the European Society of Surgical Oncology, people who are affiliated with professional societies tend to be more engaged to perpetuate and to disseminate information from the society. And in the US, at least, people in private practice, mostly for marketing purposes, although this all may change with COVID-19. You can go across specialties, you can go across global boundaries. Typically, people use multiple platforms. Very important that you maintain the rules of engagement and you don't put anything out there that you will subsequently regret. And my computer is not advancing. I apologize. Some of the things we've published out there, social media and surgery, and this is a classic example. That I was asked to put together a panel at the ESCP meeting in Milan a couple of years ago, and I said to my panelists, I was moderating it, to Richard Brady and Rhiannon O'Connor and Ed Fitzgerald and Julio, when we started working together, why don't we write a manuscript? Because we've got academic bright ideas, and I'm sorry, my computer is absolutely acting up this morning. Collaboration and dialogue for events, ABCDE, talk about social media. Here's how it's used by different specialties. You can see, we went on in our subsequent article in colorectal surgery BJS to show this tremendous increase in tweets with a couple of us kind of at the center, showing the value of it for education. Definitely part of surgical education here to stay. Most recently, we've looked at how to make an impact in surgical research. And one of our alumni has put that out there with including two of our faculty today, Manish and Julio, looking at SOMI for surgery and surgical research. One that's now in press that we worked on is using the American College of Surgeons Clinical Congress from 2018 hashtag, looking at tweets and tweeters and finding out the factors that are associated with tweeting and retweeting. Social media is now used more and more by mainstream publications. So more than just using a citation index score or an impact factor, altmetrics become important based upon all of the things included on this slide. And some journals put it out there. JAMA Network puts the altmetric on every single article. Very, very important. Here you can see an example. Altmetric score of 667 tells you where they're from, which type of social media. As we go forward, we're going to increase global engagement. We're going to improve our quality of content. Very importantly, improve gender balance and continue to promote our young folks. You know, our jobs as senior surgeons is to ensure that the burgeoning young surgeons in training and recently graduated and the younger people are going to create a better environment for patients than we're leaving to them to inherit. So we want to improve gender balance, we want to improve diversity and global reach as we move forward. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and apologize for the couple of computer glitches. I've stopped sharing, and thanks again, Dr. Cortez-Gural, for the privilege. Looking forward to a panel discussion later.
Thank you very much, Stephen. It's been an amazing presentation. Very, very interesting. We will discuss later on during the discussion. And I'd like to introduce now and to welcome Professor Antonio De Lacy. Antonio is an excellent and very respected surgeon. He is the head of surgery of the Hospital Clinic in Barcelona. He is also a visionary. He has been a visionary founder of AIS channel, one of the most disruptive initiatives regarding surgical education. He is going to talk about the educational channels for surgical training. Thank you very much, Antonio, for joining us.
Thank you, Delia. Thank you to the Society for your kind invitation. I try to share my presentation. Can you see now?
Yes, we can see it now.
Good. Okay, I think it's good to start with you know, that's Mario Benedetti is from Uruguay. I think it's good the phrase, when we thought we had all the answers, but suddenly all the questions changed. And I think that is very important. That's probably the reason because we are here, because our world changed after the pandemic. You know, we have, when you said the title of my talk is talking about new paradigm, let me say, probably it's not new, thanks to all of you, it's educational channels for surgical training. But you can see here in this table, maybe you need to ask something, and now you have to ask, you know, a mask that you can see here. The question is we are ready, because if you go, for example, my friend Steve, actually my brother Steve, you know, mentioned Netflix. Netflix decided after the COVID-19 or during the pandemic, decided to change the high definition to normal definition because it's a lot of people connected. However, my question is, do you think the world in the near future, can we work without, you know, with these new rules? I think yes, maybe we can see. Let me introduce what is the, you know, the AIS. When we started with AIS channel 5 years ago, it's only that we call it like Netflix in surgery. Thanks to all of you, especially, you know, let me say, especially to people like Professor Wexner, you know, we increase, and now we have the awareness, engagement, we have courses called Kairos certifications, we have education and technology, and we have now new targets related, for example, with AI. That is very important for us. What is the metrics? Metrics, we have more than 210,000 community with us. That is really important, I think, for this kind of numbers. Probably it's not comparing with Facebook, but I think it, including all the specialty you can see in the slide: thoracic, orthospine, gynecology, urology, bariatric, colorectal, etc. But how did we react? Maybe that's the best way to react. I don't know. I'm not an expert in boxing. However, sometimes when you hear the corona here, it looks like even worse than the boxing. And coming back to the something more academic and scientific, is Charles Darwin is not the strongest on the species that survives, on the most intelligent. It is one of the most adaptable change. And I think it's very important, the adaptation, and we need to adapt in the new era. We had the correct setup, we have surgical alternative, and we have the self-confidence. But after COVID-19, now we have a new guidelines, new protocols. For example, during the more important pandemic, we decided to treat appendicitis with medical treatment, or maybe new surgical team dynamics that we are trying to build all together. Thanks to our Chinese colleagues, in only 48 hours, we decided to create the AIS COVID-19. Because AIS COVID-19, we have a lot of information coming from China. The generosity coming from them was very good, because they send all the protocols, they send the handbook. I recommend this handbook because it's very, very good. And we have, prevention, treatment, diagnosis, nursing, some courses explaining how to do lockout in Wuhan, etc., etc. And within 48 hours, what happened with AIS COVID-19? Okay, I'm really proud about to show you this incredible slide. And this slide is what I'm proud, but I'm proud of this slide. No, I'm proud because I'm part of the group, part of the family that you are, you are in the family. Maybe because he's some days older than me, Steve is our grandfather, and he's here, and all of you, Manish, Benki, Delia, Julio, etc., collaborate. And that is the reason, because in only 7 weeks, we have more than 2 million people with a unique IP. Even RECO, in ISO, even RECO, even more than in London with Manish, is more than 39,000 unique viewers. And could you imagine, is more than, that is crazy, is 215,000 online courses finished by users. All these kind of courses you can see here. More than 215,000 in 7 weeks. But now we have not only you, we have some very important allies that you can see here. That is a beautiful video, I think. Okay, let me repeat again. Say, okay, that is very important, institutions, but it's institutions, we have the, you know, all the credentials that we have in IAS is thanks to you. I want to repeat that. But what's the next? The next maybe is we have to connect between East and West. We created AIS China, and it's funny because we cannot understand any words, and they translate our questions or our answers, but we don't know exactly what's happened with the answers. I hope the answer will be very, you know, very good, but that is a very, very active. And at the same time, I think in innovation, we created the mental surgical education content creation. That is really important because the innovation is I'm sorry. The innovation is created, you know, is data driven. And I think that's is wonderful because at the same time, for example, some question, we create, you know, some important things like mental decisions. For example, in a meeting with some people could be shy, is not asking questions. You know, the machine, you know, thanks to AI, you know, sent immediately questions. Then the questions we call active questions to promote a discussion. That's all the different things. You know, we created a calculated standard deviations, you know, comparing, you know, some questioning in one part of the lectures or maybe later. At the same time, we are working very hard with simulators because probably, you know, the way to teach our young surgeons will be different. For example, you can see here, we created with a company in Canada, you know, simulator for ventilators. You cannot imagine. You have the ventilator with augmented reality, and you see the different parameters, and you can change the parameters. For example, a so complicated patient in COVID patients in ICU. At the same time, we created a telesurgeon. It's my last.
Hello, my name is Dr. Valverde. I'm one of the surgeons of Dr. Lacey's surgical team. And I'm here today to try a new tool because I'm being trained in TATME and I have the chance, thanks to new technology and the efforts of the AIS team, of trying the telementoring tool. So we already did a public performance on February 27, 2019. Later on, we tried in Shanghai too. We went from the proof of concept to the proof of reality. But since our obsession is learning and the transfer of knowledge, we kept on working on this AIS telesurgeon tool to be able to get to the point where we are today. All these connections we do, all these real-time connections we do with the OR are inside a clinical trial we are performing. Actually, we had a recent publication in British Journal of Surgery, maybe you saw it. And we think it's a really interesting field to investigate. So let's see how it works. So we have the image of the whole operating room, but we can change this point of view. Actually, we have 5 different points of view. We have the main one, we have the patient's heart rate and blood pressure, we have the transanal dissection, we have the transabdominal dissection, and we have a big picture of the transanal field. So let's choose one of them. We can choose the transanal field to show you all the tools we have. So these buttons are here so that they are thought to be maybe in an iPad, or so that you can do it with your thumb or with your index. This is the pointer, which is a scalpel, but we can change it to a regular pointer. We can draw lines. I can show Dr. Lacey where the plane is or where he should dissect. We can do that in different colors. So that was yellow, but we can do it in green or red or blue. We can choose any color we like. We can also change the size of our drawings, our lines, so they can be thinner or wider. we can actually write some text. We can say something to Dr. Lacey, or we can write anything we want. We can use a text. We can use different shapes. We have these to show maybe what kind of the section we should do. The triangle is especially useful for that. So we have different tools, and actually if we want to say something specific, we can freeze the image, maybe not here. Here, we freeze the image, and then we make a specific question. So what's this you're cutting now? We can put a bigger line. Should you go this way, or is this your lateral limit? We can do some drawings in a steady image, and then go back to real-time surgery.
What is the T-shirt now? It's with a new normal, we call it the new normal in AS China. We have new guidelines, new protocols, new step-by-step surgery. Now we have to record probably more than 500 new operations in all different specialties. That is the reason because we created this important family around the world. And that's all, Delia. I hope you know the information was good for you. Was enough good for you, and thank you very much for your kind invitation. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, Antonio. It has not been good, it has been excellent, so thank you very much. There have been a lot of questions for you that I will ask you later in the chat, and thank you, Antonio, it's been excellent. Now our next speaker is Professor Manish Chen. Professor Manish Chen is one of my best friends. He is a professor of surgery at the University College of London, and he is a world-renowned expert in minimal invasive colorectal surgery, and he is one of the most respected voices of colorectal surgery on Twitter. And Professor Manish Chen, he is going to talk us about mentorship, leadership, and global sharing through communities. So thank you, Manish.
Thank you very much, Delia, for that delightful introduction. I'm not sure how much of that is true, but okay, so hopefully you can see my screen. Is that right, Delia? You can see it?
Yes, perfect.
Thank you. Okay, so thank you very much to Steve for setting the scene about social media and the various formats that it currently comes in. And then, of course, Antonio, as usual, showing us the edge of reality, or the edge of what we can do now and perhaps the future. And every time we see these talks from Antonio, a year or two later, we're all doing the same thing. So I'm going to just take a step backwards and talk specifically about one aspect of social media, and that's Twitter. And some of the concepts and aspects that Steve mentioned on mentorship, leadership, and global sharing. So, why do we need mentorship as surgeons? And when do we need that type of mentorship? And this is actually a continuum. It's not simply something that we need when we are juniors or trainees, but it's something that we need throughout our lives and at different stages. And I'll talk a little bit about this at the end from a recent article in the Harvard Business Review. But the reason we need mentorship, for example, could be that there isn't enough experience that you're getting from within your institution. You may find that starting a new post, whether that be a new hospital, a new institution, or even a new rank within your training, suddenly you need some guidance. You might find that you feel alone. You feel as though there isn't anyone like you, or there isn't anyone going through the same problems as you, and you don't feel as though you're represented. So you might feel as though there's a lack of diversity. And I think these are all very different reasons why people need mentorship at different stages of their career. And no one really is exempt from this. And what have the challenges been historically? Now, this is a paper from several years back. And there have been clearly more articles written since. But what we've always noticed in the challenges in mentorship is, in particular, there can be gender issues, cultural issues, generational issues. And I think Steve mentioned a couple of these things. I mean, it wouldn't be as common for one to approach, I lost the slides, I think.
Yes, yeah, unfortunately, yeah.
Right, where have they gone?
I think it's just that you're now not sharing your screen. There we go.
Okay, here we are.
Okay.
So a lot of these have been historical, but certainly it wouldn't be so, as Steve mentioned, if you had gone up to Professor Wexner in a meeting prior to this familiarity that social media brings, it may have been a more daunting task than if, of course, you've been interacting. And this is something personally that I had when I first met Professor Wexner in recent years, when we had developed a relationship over social media prior to meeting in person. And of course, we met in person at the home of AIS, at one of Antonio's broadcasts. And it all sort of came together, but it all started with this relationship developing over social media.
Manish, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but your presentation now isn't on full screen, so we can't quite see all. I don't know if you can expand it at all, or.
It's full screen on mine.
Okay, then no problem. Then I think it's probably just the system. So if you just try pressing the.
Okay, so let's go back to here. It's on full screen on mine.
Okay,
on
we can see it. It's just sometimes not large enough. But sorry to interrupt. Please carry on.
So it may well be that you find that mentorship is not what you envisage within your own institution. So you may need to look elsewhere. And how can we best overcome these barriers? Well, we look for the opportunities, and social media may provide those opportunities. Now, here are some fairly well-reported papers here by Nikki Stamp, in particular from the cardiothoracic side of things. And you've seen in particular, one of the problems that I mentioned was mentorship for female surgeons that have historically been an issue because of lack of the obvious female role model. Now, clearly there have been plenty of female role models, but that the perception of that historically has not been the case. And if you can't see what you want to be, then that becomes very difficult. And as you can see from some of these graphs, in particular, the one at the top, women surgeons are more likely to have women trainees, but women surgeons do think that it is a male-dominated specialty when you look at the bottom, graph, which means if you're an up-and-coming trainee and you feel as though you're not represented, that can be a real problem. And social media perhaps allows one to look at what surgeons are doing outside your institution, outside your region, outside your country, and then gives you that mentorship, and you develop that relationship remotely. Because mentorship doesn't necessarily need to come from one person in one institution. It can be a whole package coming from different people in different. The characteristics that one would want from a SOMI mentor, well, here again is a paper from Jessica Luke. And what we see here is, of course, being approachable. Now, historically, surgeons may have had, there may have been a perception that there is a lack of approachability. But developing a relationship through social media perhaps helps break down that barrier somewhat. There is this thing fourth down that says quick response, and I can say if I send Steve a text or an email or any kind of message, often I've got a reply before I've even entered the last character. So a quick response in a mentor is clearly something that is appreciated, because it's like having a conversation then, not like sending an email necessarily, or sending a letter, or sending some other form of correspondence. But I think quick response definitely adds to it. And if you look at the kind of things that are important in that relationship, it isn't just scholarship. Interestingly, daily activities and family life come above scholarship. in the things that we look for in mentors, and mentors look for in mentees. So if you're going to be a mentor, you should also be a leader. And this is some of the principles on leading corporate leadership principles. So here, Microsoft, Amazon, and Apple, and I have friends, fortunately, that work for all three of these companies. And when they're interviewed or when they're interviewing, they have to go through these particular leadership principles with the candidates. Clearly, having three is easier to manage if you're one of the interviewees than the 14 leadership principles of Amazon. But all of them are very much ingrained in their culture. And these are specific. But what do we need in our leaders, and what do we need in our mentors? Well, here are some examples. And again, they go back to the research shown by Jessica Luke, that we need to be approachable, we need to have good communication, they need to be visionary, they need to be inspirational, aspirational. So these are some of the characteristics that we look for. And who are the leaders? Well, the leaders don't necessarily need to be just individuals. In a time like this, and I'll use the COVID-19 situation as an example, we need leaders now more than ever. And leaders don't necessarily need to be individuals. In fact, in a situation like this, they need to be whole institutions, whole societies. We look for some of these groups and collaboratives now to lead us through this difficult pandemic. And of course, there are individuals here, but the individuals are always stronger when they're part of a collaborative and part of a group. So here are some of the voices that we've been hearing, because we need to prepare, we need to react. And once we prepare and react, we formulate guidelines through research and data capture and analysis, so we can then go through a recovery plan. And only then can we be reassured. And the voices that we've been hearing, EAES and SAGES, are providing guidance for us on laparoscopic matters, for example. American College of Surgeons has a repository now of information that we can use. And one would say that this is most likely the house of surgery, as Steve puts it, where it is the biggest society of surgeons by number, and it needs to provide guidance now and leadership. Of course, I put the World Health Organization in here, and you can look at that how you win. That's more of a political thing, perhaps. But of course, the World Health Organization underpins a lot of what's going on at the moment. So if we're going to get a message out and we're going to get information out, and this is the Pan-Surge Collaborative, and there's been plenty of webinars recently over different topics, dissemination through Twitter and social media allows us that immediacy. So we don't have to wait for peer review, we don't have to wait for print or even digital journals. We can get information out quickly. But that comes at a price, because we now are beginning to know that Twitter is faster than the news. We can disseminate that information rapidly. We've got bite-sized information so that we don't lose concentration, and we can pick up those sound bites very quickly. And infographics, we know how in politics, it has changed the face of politics over the last few years, particularly in the States, and more recently in the UK. But the downside is that false news or fake news travels 6 times faster than the real news, because there's no peer review. A lot of it can be opinion and conflicting opinion. And often we look for and like the kind of materials, and the algorithms work by you seeing stuff that you like. So thereby it being an echo chamber. And this viral spread of fake news, this is difficult, because now you have to sift through your feed and decide yourself what is true and what's not. So we have to take it upon ourselves to peer review. And how can we peer review? Well, we can peer review through a global community. And here we have Julio, who has been one of the pioneers and leaders in this, recently looking at the metrics and the numbers for COVID surge. This is the peer review. By having so many different surgeons from different parts of the world, all allowing opinion and informing each other, that brings the peer review over the individual. So colorectal surgery, the hashtag of colorectal surgery, is global surgery. And if you're going to make an impact in surgical research, you can't, the idea of now the individual surgeon sitting in one hospital in the corner of one part of the world, to do that, and perhaps as TME blossomed from the lovely town of Basingstoke, could that happen in 2020? Now you see multi-center collaborative trials with thousands of patients being developed very, very quickly, and that all works through the community. Now again, a note of caution. This is a paper again from a few years ago from JAMA. The thing about social media, and looking at the graphic in the bottom right, which is one of these nodal charts, is that once you become part of a collaborative and part of this global community, do you still maintain your individual identity? How easy is it to go against the popular opinion and say something differently? Now, this paper described it as operationally impossible because there's lack of user consensus. And actually, it can bring potential harm to your own identity, and any benefits may well be unrealized. So there are rules of engagement, and the American College of Surgeons recently, within a few years, have put this guidance out and said, look, if you're going to use it, there are some rules here. And if you're going to use it successfully, be aware that you are out in a public forum where patients, the public, journalists, anyone can see what you're writing. So be very, very careful. And I think you find a lot of the pioneers of social media use this specifically as a professional tool, and they don't use it as a personal tool. So I think it's important to realize that, of course, there are many benefits, but there is a downside. So my mentors, who have my mentors been over the years? So I'm going to just point to this interesting article I read in the Harvard Business Review recently by Justin Dimmock and Vineet Chopra. And they described your journey, professional journey, requiring mentorship in 3 phases: the launch phase, the cruise phase, and the boost phase. So different mentors provide you with different skills and different requirements at different times. And it may well be at the beginning of your career, you need a mentorship team around you, or a mentor that is going to launch your career. And then you go into cruise for a period of time that allow you to just slowly develop things and consolidate your skills. And then somewhere along that, there goes that boost, take you to the next level or make you develop another interest. And of course, here, many of you know, in fact, all of you, I'm sure, know the people in this picture, from Steve, Gina, Antonio, Mariana, Julio, Richard. All of these have made huge, huge differences to my career, and have all been in my life at different stages of that professional career. So with that, I will stop sharing whatever bit of my screen you have managed to see, and I will hand over to Delia and Julio.
Thank you, Manish. Thank you very much. That's been an excellent presentation. There are many, many questions for you from the audience, but we'll talk about later. So our next speaker is Professor Julio Mayol from Madrid. He is also one of my friends, and Professor Julio Mayol, he is medical director of Hospital Clínico San Carlos in Madrid. He is also professor of surgery, and he is the mind behind SOMI for Surgery. He's also leading the SOMI for Surgery families or communities, and he is going to talk about the power of Twitter. So thank you very much, Julio.
Thank you very much, Delia. Thank you very much for some reason I cannot share my, okay, yes. I cannot share my window. Let me check.
You are sharing your screen at the moment, so what we just need to see your presentation on the screen.
Okay, let me see.
Yeah, we can see what you're doing now.
Can you see it now?
Not at the moment, no. What we can actually see is your screen of the WebEx at the moment. So do you have just need to
So
if you open the presentation already on screen, and then from the WebEx just click to share screen, it should just be
okay. It worked before for some reason.
The downside to these technical things, isn't it? We'll get there, don't worry.
Okay, so I go to share and it only shows share my meeting window.
Aha, okay. Does it say other options at all underneath with share?
No other options.
Okay. Let me see. Perhaps then maybe what we can do is if you're having difficulty, I can share it for you and I could run through. I don't know in the time to email Delia whether we want to move on to Venki and then come back to you so that I can do that for you. Is that okay?
Perfect.
Great. Okay, so I'll wait for your email and then after Venki we'll run it through, yes? Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to move on to our next speaker, Venki Manikrishnan, Professor Venki Manikrishnan. He is also a very close friend of mine, and he is a world-renowned colorectal robotic surgeon. He is a very, very active user of social media, not only Twitter, but also LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. And he is going to talk about Facebook and the surgical community. So thank you very much, Venki, for joining us.
Thanks, Delia. Thanks for the invitation. I'm going to share my screen there. Hello, I can't hear it.
We can hear you.
Okay.
Okay.
Can you see my screen?
Yeah, we can see your screen, just waiting for your presentation to... There we go. Yes, we can see it. Yeah, so we just need it on the screen. Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks, Delia. Thanks for inviting me. It's absolutely awesome to be with you guys and to have all my mentors. All of you are Professor Wexner, Professor Lacey, Professor Manish, and of course Delia, because we learn from each other and it's very important. We all live in different parts of the world, but we're all connected, as Professor Wexner said, through social media. So, and one of the things which Professor Wexner said was social media can be country specific and people specific, and I think that's a very important point, because if you look at Twitter and Instagram, it's very popular in Europe and the US. In the Asian or the Far East, in Asia and Far East, Facebook is very, very popular. So let's go through some stats and see. So the important thing to see is we have to use social media for different things. It could be for education, it could be for information, creating a surgical community or even a patient community, because that's what social media, in this pandemic where we're all stuck in, we need to communicate with our colleagues, with our friends, with our patients. And very importantly, there was a point when I realized social media is important, because when I moved back from England and started my practice in India, I don't know anyone, we started, it's private practice, 90% is private practice. So we started off, and when patients started coming in, I did have a Facebook page in probably 2007, 2008. They used to go check on what I was doing on Facebook, and they had that. So then I realized that social media has got so much power. So anyway, let's start with this presentation. So let's look at some stats. Okay, so if you look at the total population on this planet is 7.75 billion, and 3.8 billion people are on some form of social media. That's about 49%, according to this stat from Hootsuite, which is very active, assessing digital media. So that's a huge number. So if you look at this next stat, the world's most used social media platform is Facebook. Now that's because it's been around for a very long period of time, and I started using Facebook mostly for social reasons and connecting with friends around the world, and this was in the 2000s. But then what happened was, then, as I said, patients were starting to look at it, and I was a bit worried about posting with friends, parties and whatnot. So slowly it moved away from personal stuff to more educational stuff or professional stuff. So if you can see that there are more than 2 billion users registered on Facebook. And if looking at this creative, if you look at this creative, there are 1 billion active users on Facebook. That's a huge number. You know, Twitter's got 560, Instagram's got 150, LinkedIn's got 240. These are active users, and each social media platform does different things for you, and you need to just figure out how to use it. It's very, very important, because, you know, as Manish said, and Professor Lacey and Professor Wexner said, each one has got so much power, and you just need to spend enough time understanding it, harnessing it. It has also got its own issues like fake news and privacy. So, but you need to understand what you can post, what you can read, what you can share, and that's very critical. So looking at this creative, if you look at the monthly active users around the world, you see Facebook is very popular in Asia Pacific and rest of the world compared to Europe and US. So, you know, the numbers are slowly increasing in Europe and US, but, you know, it's very popular in Asia and rest of the world. So what specific features does Facebook have? You can have a newsfeed, you can write something onto it, you can meet your friends, which is very important. That's what it started out for, connecting with friends, you know, networking. And it has a wall where you can write what you're doing right now, and, you know, and get an interactive response to it. It also maintains a timeline. You know, I could go back all the way up to 2007 or 8 when I first joined, and then look at what's happened. And every now and then it shows you memories of, you know, what you posted. It could be a video, it could be a picture, it could be, you know, a frustrating rant which you put in, whatever. It will pop up, and, you know, you can also reshare it. It sort of has that timeline feature on it. And when you post something, you can get likes or reactions. People can like it, don't like it, can be, and put an emoticon, for example, and you will have an idea of what people are responding to. People can comment on it. People can post pictures, videos, in response to it. You can also have, it also has a messages and inbox feature where friends, sometimes patients, as I will show you, will send you direct messages. Now that's got a problem even in friends, because there's been lots of privacy issues. But then, particularly as Professor Wexner said, it is a country-specific issue in a population of 1.4 billion people, where people live in very inaccessible parts of the country, but have access to phones and, you know, some social media or some internet. Patients do message for seeking for help or advice, and sometimes, particularly in this pandemic, it has shown that it is been very useful. You know, obviously there are some, you know, concerns to it, but I think more and more, it will get explored. And you also can create groups, which can be societies, it can be, you know, a interest group, it could be a social media group, users group, or it could be a robotic surgeons group. So it has got several features, and each one has, you know, signing up is free, obviously, and has to look at these different features so that you can use the power of this social media platform, you know, whichever benefits you. It could be for communicating with your friends or your colleagues or a society. You can join the society. I'll show you some examples now. So things you could do with that, you could create a personal page, which is usually personal. You normally connect with, you know, friends and colleagues. You can create a professional page. Now, in a professional page, I think it's going to be very important because of the reach of this platform, where, you know, you put on the things which you do on a daily basis. It could be your practice, it could be the type of work you do, and the other thing you can do. The other thing you can do is to create your practice or a group page. Suppose you work in a group, a colorectal surgeons group. You could have a group page or a practice page where you could share the information, you know, what you're doing with your colleagues, with friends, and even with patients who want to access. Because when patients particularly search for a problem, the algorithms of these social media networks are so interconnected that it will throw up, you know, Google response to a particular problem, say hemorrhoids, or, you know, if you have mentioned hemorrhoids in your group page, it will show up there. So to build your own network, to build an audience, it's going to be a huge advantage with this platform. You could build a community page. You could create a community page for patients with, say, stomas, you know, and it could be a closed community where, you know, you have to access membership, and, you know, and you approve it. Or you could create a closed group, which can be paid or unpaid, because you put very important content, or very, you know, sort of, you have a professional group to put record some things and put onto it, so they can be paid or non-paid. So you could mix and match however way you want and way you want to drive it. I'm just trying to move to the next. Okay, so let's look at a private page. So this is an example of my private page. So it says, it gives, you could have your picture on it, you could have a background picture, you could connect with friends and family, and mostly what I've of late is that lots of colleagues who are around the world who become friends, because then, as we've been discussing, this platform gives a chance to know this person. You've read their books, you've read their articles, you've seen them on different meetings, but and you'd connect, and it gives an interface, and what do you say, a face to the person or the name. And when you meet them in person, which has happened to me so many times in the last few years, just changes everything, and the personal connect is just phenomenal. So we get to know about their hobbies, their achievements and projects, what they are up to, and it's amazing too. And also, in this personal page, you have your friends. Now, in a country like where I live, where we are in private practice, a lot of your friends and family and are all connected to you, and you put out information on for example, this pandemic, to stay safe, whatnot, and people follow that, and it's very important because you let them know what you're doing, and also I would say, compared to 2008, I don't post any personal stuff. I don't like, if I, for example, if I met Manish or Delia in some part of the world, I would have normally posted it left, right, and center and say, like, hey guys, we are meeting up, we should all catch up again. And these are some memories. But because what's happening is patients are cross-referencing. They go on this platform, they go on LinkedIn, they go on Twitter. It is just sometimes scary. So I've stopped posting very personal stuff, or general stuff is okay. I don't see any problems with it, but because particularly with when you're carrying some drinks, or some communities, some patients, some groups can have a problem with that. So I'll be a bit careful with that. So this is, for example, in my timeline, it is on the 4th of May. If you can see, when we were all in lockdown and it was partially open, we're all going back to work. So I put out that information to say I'm officially back to work, and still stay safe. And it was like my friends, my colleagues, my mentors in college. So it sort of gives an idea of, okay, things are getting back into sort of normalcy, but with restrictions. So it's very important useful communication tool. Now, next coming is professional pages. Professional pages, I think, are very powerful. I personally suggest that all of us should have a professional page, because it gives you, it gives, you can put all the information you want about your work, your networks, and it's very useful if you particularly have a private practice, and also we're working part of for the example, the NHS. It's important to put out the work which people can cross-reference, because nowadays, in particular our practice, if people hear about a surgeon or they have a problem, they immediately Google, and immediately you get multiple LinkedIn, Facebook, as I already said, showing up, and it's so immediately they go, and because they can interact, they can go and see what posts have been done, and it's something that's very, very useful to grow this community. So I'm just going to show, this is a video, so which shows that, so you could post your picture, you have your name and what you do, and it's all different features there, as you can see. This is my mentor, Dr. Reddy, who's like Professor of Excellence, Professor Lacey, who've been instrumental in my growth. And you can, patients can ask someone to assist or ask for what services. You can write a post and post it straight away. You can put a video, and you can see what are services which I offer, robotics, or my private clinic there. Patients can write reviews. The good thing is you can, you can delete some of these reviews if there will be negative ones. You can't make everybody happy. That's the problem with all these platforms. But patients can like it, and you can see this meeting was also posted. You can also give information about your website, and these are other pages here. And you can see all the videos I posted coming down, and as we go down. So this is a little thing which we're talking about, speaking in your local language and stuff. So, I did a little video. These are patients who are liking, and this one was a 2018 Facebook Live, which I'll talk about Facebook Live in a minute, which is a very useful feature. This is another video which I did with Professor Wexner for the ACS for our India response. So it's all there. So patients can go and look at it to see there is what kind of work we do. And, and you can look at this post particularly. So where I posted to inform this primarily this audience's patients to say that I've been back to work. We also posted a video on, coronavirus safety, which, not everybody's going to respond to it. I'm not a celebrity like Rihanna or someone that will have millions of likes, but people look at it. Some of them will like it, but they do watch, and it's very important to, so you can, this is my private practice, which I post a little video on, just to create and inform people what we are doing. So I'm just moving to the next slide. So that's your professional page, and I recommend that all of us have one, and people can post on it, ask questions. So if you look at this slide, it's got all my posts in it. There is an information on hemorrhoids for patients. It's got about 1,000 views. There are videos about this particular one was when Prof. Exner, Manish were there last year at our annual conference. We spoke about colorectal cancer awareness. This was when we received for all the work and the collaboration we do. We got an award which got 1 million views. So these are all seen by patients, and and it's very important to keep them engaged. And if you come low, over here, these are interviews in your local dialect. This is my local language. We are 22 plus languages in India, and these interviews are in your local language. So patients, local communities will go and access these and listen to about, say, hemorrhoids or fissures. So it's very important to put content which is relevant to your local community in your local language. And it's very country specific. So patients can also message. This is during the pandemic. You can see here a patient from Bangladesh messaging to say she had a fissure, she couldn't reach out, and unfortunately she said, "Could you speak in Bangla?" I didn't know. I said only English, but she was able to manage, and we prescribed some diltiazem and some laxatives. Now there are privacy issues, but in a pandemic where you can't access any healthcare, it is at least a platform to help people. And you can see here in this column, there's all patients asking for help, and but be careful what you advise. It's simple medicines, okay, but giving them advice that you have to see a specialist or a doctor sooner or later. So the other thing about these professional pages is that it gives you insights. This is amazing because it gives you what it can do. I mean, how many people have seen it? How many people have previewed it? How much reach? You can see in the last week we've had about almost 100,000 in post engagement. People have liked it or commented on it. And also, I'm not put over here, but you can also see where your audience is from around the world. Because suppose you have a group, you're in private practice, and you want to put this information up to a particular region, you can target your information to go there. So in this new world where it is all changing, online consultations, telemedicine, and I think it's very important to put this information out, and also to see how interactive and responsive this platform is. So Facebook Live, it's a great tool because at any point you could switch on your phone and go live. We used this in the 2018 meeting. I think we did one 19.2. It's a great tool. You can do a live webcast. It's free. It's interactive. You can, if you message it or get the message out, you can have a global audience. It is recorded. As you can see here, Professor Wexner is, this is from the 2018. You can see patients asking questions and we are responding to it. I know I look dull here. I wasn't. I was, it was just a long night, previous night. So, but we're all very happy. So, but, you could see all these. Yeah, so the questions being asked, and it's a great tool, and and we look forward to doing this next year. So then you can create professional, you can create private groups like the SAGES Colorectal Surgery Masters Program. For example, it's a private group. You have to apply for membership. It's approved by the host, and it can keep you updated on the latest stages things, and and the meetings and other programs. So this is a robotic surgery collaboration private group. Again, it's you have to apply to it. You can post videos onto it. You get fantastic videos from experts from around the world. This is one from David Larson from the Mayo in a robotic right colectomy, and it's such a useful tool, and you can ask questions specifically about a particular instrument to use, or and it's excellent. Societies can have pages. This is the ASCA's page, and and as you can see, this is Dr. Margolin's tribute, which the ASCA's had posted on the 5th of May. So and you can see it immediately gives you relevant other pages like the SAGES, DCR, and Journal of what. So you can create society pages, and it is very useful to follow these things to keep you updated. So social media platforms are all very interconnected. We think they are separate. I try to post across all platforms. Obviously, I do more in Facebook because I've been with that platform. I know better how it works. I'm starting to use other platforms, Twitter, following Manish and Prof. Exner and Prof. Lacey, Instagram after Delia and Julio. And I think it's important to use these platforms because friends, colleagues, more importantly, patients now will go into telehealth online because of all these developments around the world, and they will search across platforms, cross-verify. I could claim I could be the best surgeon in the world, but I need to have content to prove it. I need my peer group saying, okay, Venki, this is what he's saying, but what you've done this or that, because that's how they cross-reference, and it's very important to create content. So as I said, content is king or queens, to be fair to everyone. And it's important to keep all this content, in a place where, wherever you go, keep collecting content so that you can, put it in different platforms. It's so useful, and it's going to really benefit, what you try to do. So my suggestion is use multiple, post content regularly in multiple platforms, keep up to date, grow your audience. It could be colleagues, it could be patients. You will see more patients following you on multiple platforms because of the pandemic pushed it towards that, and I think we need to respond to it. So with my multiple Facebook pages, we have almost 440,000 followers on that. We have 3,000 followers on LinkedIn, 2,500 on LinkedIn. So it all grows. I think it's very important to understand they're all interconnected, and and it's going to be great in the future. So I would conclude as take-home messages. Facebook is a very powerful social media tool. It's very interactive. Content is very important, and it's important to, wherever you go, get good content where you interact with your peer group, preserve that. It's free. You can use the paid service to target your specific needs, but watch out for fake news. As Manish said, it's very important for reposting or, commenting. You have to verify it's from, good sources, like, for the example, the SAGES page or the ASCA's page. And I'm sure all of you will use more of it and benefit from it. Cheers, guys. Thanks so much for listening.
Thank you very much, Venki. That's been incredible, and I've learned a lot about Facebook, which is something I really need to improve my account.
Yeah, you missed on Facebook, Delia. You need to be there.
Yes, I know. I have to do it. That's why I was so much looking forward to listening to you, and I have learned a lot. Thank you very much, Venki. And Gemma, what are we doing now? It's Professor Millán.
I'm going to share the presentation for you. So just bear 1 second. Just make sure that you can see. Do you see my screen now? Okay, do you see the presentation?
Yes.
Okay, so let me just go back 1 second. Okay, so if I share the screen and then if you just instruct me when to move on, then I'll do so. Okay.
Okay.
Gemma, hello. Say next. Is that okay?
Yes, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So thank you very much, Delia. And it's going to be difficult to say something meaningful after these excellent, outstanding presentations. So I will try to tweak my presentation. Next.
Okay.
We have succeeded because we are able to cooperate flexibly at large scale. And we can do that if we use two sentiments, fear and envy. But if we want to do something larger, better, we need to extend fantasy, new ideas, like this new future that Antonio shows us. And in order to do that, we need tools, we need media. And social media is the tool that we have right now. Next. As we know, in 2006, Twitter was launched. It is the social media tool. It has over 300 million active users, and it is the app that is most frequently used by physicians and surgeons. Why? Because they get the capacity to use info mediation. And in addition to that, they can serve content they generate themselves. This content can go from text, simple text, to live video. It is true that it's somewhat addictive. In fact, it is very addictive. And that is due to the use of live retweets. People, human beings, love to be loved and liked. And that must share more and more content. It makes a huge difference. And it makes a difference on Facebook. There is no way to go viral on Facebook. It is possible to go viral because the content that we generated by us, by people who we trust, can go beyond our followers, becoming news in and of itself. In addition to that, we can talk data through the Twitter API and analyze it. So it gives us a deeper understanding of how people, surgeons in this case, relate with each other and how they share content. Next. So I want to answer 3 questions: why, how, and what surgeons should do on Twitter. Why should surgeons be on Twitter? It is quite simple. Because if we don't fill the void, others will do it. Others will speak for us. Next, how do surgeons engage on Twitter? It has been published recently by Rebecca Grossman that there is this framework. First, we connect. We connect with friends, with key opinion leaders, with people we trust. Then we share our ideas. Our ideas are infectious. They travel within the network, contaminating, infecting other nodes in the network. Adherence is generated by likes and retweets. If we see that our content is liked by others, we are encouraged to share more content that is valuable to our followers. And finally, we get impact. We get outcomes from this. Next. So look at Twitter and the network as an information processing network. It has been somehow mentioned before by Steve, by Antonio, Manish, and Banky. The network is more efficient. It can solve more problems if we increase the number of nodes connected. The larger, in this digital world, the larger the network, the better. It is not about quality, it's about quantity. Of course, there has to be diversity. The more diverse, the better. The density of the connections must be high because it encourages, it enhances the capacity to process information. Of course, there must be free dissemination of ideas if we want to be successful. Next, what do we share? Basically, explicit and tacit knowledge. First, we are able to generate more knowledge through research. It is possible to manage research projects and also to establish and to run investigation based on Twitter data. In addition to that, we disseminate knowledge through opinions and conversations, presentations, meetings like this, and articles. Next, and the question is frequently, what do I get in return? What's the return on investment? Let's go through reputation, research projects, publications, impact, and social capital. Next. From a digital standpoint, reputation is what others say about you in the internet, online. And we have to be there, because if we don't make our voice heard, others will be there to share their opinions and perspectives. In addition to that, we generate influence. What is influence in this digital world? It's the ability to create an effect, to change opinions and behaviors, and to drive measurable outcomes online. Next, in fact, we can now almost live check the influence of the journals we follow. For example, you can see here two analyses of the recent impact of BGS and JAMA surgery on Twitter. The difference is that the potential reach for BGS over the last 7 days or 8 days has been almost 5 million people, whereas for JAMA surgery, it was like slightly over 1 million. How we connect notes, how we connect surgeons, and how we disseminate ideas makes a lot of difference, a huge difference. Next, of course, research is key. And there are 3 examples here. COVID search is being an excellent, outstanding example of how Twitter can be useful to run research and investigation in a very, very fast manner. SoMe for Surgery is another example of how connections and networks can be studied and can generate knowledge. And of course, in Spanish, Bosque, which is also a very innovative approach to use Twitter for surgical training. Next, with regard to outputs, if you go to PubMed, the number of papers, including the words surgery and social media, is increasing. And personally, Twitter has generated many collaborations and publications in high impact factor journals, something that is completely different from what I experienced in the past. Most of my publications come from collaborations with surgeons all over the world, and most of them are based on the or are the result of the study of Twitter and Twitter interactions. Next, as Steve mentioned, now there are new ways to gauge impact. Some of our papers, some of the papers that we have co-authored have been highly cited, but they have huge metrics. And nowadays, almost immediately, we want to know how our ideas and our findings are disseminated on social media. And our metrics give us that perspective and that feedback. It's interesting because new generations don't want to wait for 2 years to see what the impact factor of their research is. This is changing rapidly. And just to finish, next, on Twitter, surgeons can amass social capital. And you will ask, what is social capital? It's clear what financial capital is, but social capital is the new is the new value for younger generations. Of course, probably Steve, Antonio, and I are outliers here. But people don't want to amass money. They want to have this intangible asset that help us and them to solve problems quickly, efficiently. And it emerges from social interactions, networks, and values shared online. And I think that this can be the take-home message. Don't think in terms of money and return on investment. Think in terms of social return on investment. Next. Thank you very much for your attention. I think that it has been really a challenge to build this presentation with so many excellent and outstanding presentations that preceded me. Thank you, Deli.
Thank you very much, Julio. It's been really interesting. It's always a pleasure to listen to you speaking out so many for surgery. It's really encouraging and inspiring. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we are a little running out of time, and we're moving now to the last presentation, which is my presentation, and I'm going to share with you about Instagram for surgeons. So Gemma, can you watch my presentation? Can you see it?
No, unfortunately not, we can't.
Okay, for a moment.
You should just be able to click on your screen and see the icon. Having any? Do you want to continue as well, Delia, just in case? Because obviously it was working before. I'm not sure why it's not sharing now.
For right now?
No, just bear with me one more. I'm going to try and do one more thing to see if I can help in any way. No, that's not helping. No, unfortunately, we don't see your screen.
Okay, and sorry.
No problem.
Let's try again. I'm sorry.
No problem.
Share screen. Okay.
Yeah, there we go. We can see your screen now. We're seeing.
Okay, so
broadcast, but we just need your presentation. We can see your screen, but not the present. That's it. Perfect.
Can you see it?
Yes, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much. I'm Delia Cortez-Vidal, surgical oncologist, and I'm going to tell you about Instagram for surgeons. And Instagram is more than just a way to get jealous about your friends' vacation photos. And although it hurts to see those travel images while you sit at work, the benefits of Instagram is far-reaching. In fact, I'm going to present to you all the benefits of Instagram for surgeons. Instagram was launched 10 years ago, and it accounts for more than 800 million monthly active users. In fact, more than 70 million photos are uploaded on Instagram every day. So how does Instagram work? And let me tell you that they discover unexpectedly the most powerful way of advertising, of publicity, and is by hashtags. So this is a Spanish actress, and she's posting that she is with her dog, but then he tagged this. He tagged the brand of her T-shirt and her sunglasses, and those both products were sold out all over the world. And no other advertisement could ever achieve this kind of massive audience. And how does it work for surgeons? Well, this patient is really thankful. In fact, the daughter of this patient was really thankful. So she posted this photograph of her mother and the surgeon who performed the surgery. And the surgeon, she reposted on her Instagram account, and a huge number of patients now they have the name and the reference of this surgeon regarding this pathology. It's a fact that 35% of United States shoppers between 18 and 30 years use Instagram to research or buy health and beauty products. And during this COVID pandemic, there are a lot of habits of shopping and researching habits that have changed, and these changes are here to stay. And the way that Instagram uses big data and artificial intelligence, it's really amazing. And when you start using Instagram, you are surprised because Instagram provides you absolute content which is absolutely personalized. And this is because they use the word embedding systems, and they explore your page and search function. All your advertisements are completely targeted to your interests. They enhance the user experience. They filter spam. They fight cyberbullying and delete all offensive comments. It's really, really difficult that you find something on Instagram that you don't like or is not according to your interests. And they have this big project, which is study the human condition, that they are researching about the human behaviors, about searching and consuming. So they just want your experience on Instagram to be completely nice and pleasant for you. So you can think that Instagram for surgeons is just to show off, but in fact there are so many different things that you can do on Instagram. It's true, it's really a good option for self-promotion, but you can also get in touch with your societies and keep updated. But most important is very good way to communicate with your patients. And I will explain how the communities of Instagram work, because are very different from Twitter communities. So Instagram for surgeons and plastic surgeons are the king and queens of Instagram. They have discovered and they use Instagram like a window to the world. And for example, this Dr. Devgan, she's based in New York, and she uses her Instagram to position herself as a thought leader in her field. She shares about her articles, and she shares a lot of before and after treatment. She is very, very famous. But let's talk about one general surgeon, and I'm going to show you this colorectal surgeon profile on Instagram. This is Dr. Sari Morrow, and he is a Los Angeles colorectal surgeon, and he does very, very well. All his content is focused and is directed to the patients. And he shares a lot of educational content using very simple words, and it's very easy, but with direct messages for the patients. He shares a lot, and he posts a lot about the work he does in the operating room and with his team, and he posts a lot about his patients, and this gets a massive follow-up and a massive engagement, this type of post with his patients. So if you ask me, well, I'm a surgeon, should I use Instagram? Well, I will tell you that if you're not using Instagram to promote your practice, then you're missing out on a huge audience of prospective patients, because more than 500 million of people are logging on Instagram daily. And patients are on Instagram, so doctors should be on Instagram too. Let me show you the results of this trial. They analyzed 4,000 posts only by certified members of the American Society of Ophthalmic Plastic Reconstruction Surgery. They found that most of them were men talking about private practice, but what they found, and this is very interesting, is that the public or patient's engagement rose when they were featuring the posting doctor, and especially when the doctor was smiling and wearing a white coat. But also formatting contributed to success. They found that photographs were preferred over videos, and that multiple images were best presented sequentially as a carousel than as a collage. And this is the most important, and the conclusion of the article about the use of tags. And they found that the use of tags were associated and statistically significant with an increased engagement of patients. So let's talk about a little about the use of tags on Instagram, because on Instagram, the communities are tag-based. And I'm going to show you an example that for colorectal surgeons could be very demonstrative about the stomach bag community. So when you share a post on your Instagram account, if you include the hashtag stomach bag, all the patients and all the huge community of followers of the stomach bag community, when they open their Instagram account, immediately they receive your post. So they are very powerful, the post on Instagram. So patients, and it is a huge community, they share about before the surgery, their worries, concerns. They share about how they recover and get back to normal life, how they live with their stomach. This is, for example, another group, which is Crohn's, which is the community of patients dealing with Crohn's disease on Instagram. They share a lot about how they manage their stomachs. They encourage a lot each other, share tips and tricks, and encourage themselves to go back to normal life. But the most important, you can't imagine how much they share about doctors, nurses, opinions, and they ask each other. Because patients trust content from people just like them. That's it. Patients trust content from other patients or from doctors that are familiar to them on Instagram. And in fact, using your Instagram account to promote your practice is very easy, because it's very easy to target and retarget your audience. So there is an application which is targeting Instagram, and you just select, for example, I want to share my post with people having an stoma or colorectal cancer patients between 18 and 60 years in Spain and United Kingdom and France. And then the application immediately launches your post to the targeted audience. But also Instagram, they reveals you a lot of information about your followers and your audience. Not only about the gender, age, or location, but more importantly, about what time are they most active on Instagram. And this is very important to know what time you should share your content. So your patients are on Instagram, and we know that now patients are more empowered than ever to take control of their health, and they want to choose their healthcare provider. 31% of people said that social media would affect their choice of a specific doctor, hospital, or healthcare facility. And the best social media healthcare profiles give followers a glimpse at what their patient experience might be like, similar to an online view. And this is the most important, this is a very unique tool on Instagram, which is the Ask Me a Question tool. And one of my favorite surgeons using that is my friend Jorge from Venezuela. He is an oncologist, gynecologist, and he uses it a lot. So on your story on Instagram, you activate the Ask Me a Question. For example, to say, today we're going to talk about ovarian cancer, ask me a question. And the patient can send you the question privately, then you work on the answer, and then you post both the question and the answers publicly, so all your followers and all your patients could benefit from that information. And this is something that patients really, really like and appreciate. Societies, hospitals, journals, they are aware of this, and all of them are trying to be are developing their profiles on Instagram. For example, our society, European Society of Coloproctology, is on Instagram. The Association of Women Surgeons, a huge number of followers, 35,000 followers, very active with more than 1,000 posts. And For example, in other more specific societies like the appendix cancer, also patients organization or foundations. And many societies, for example, University College of London Surgical Society is also on Instagram, and recently AIS channel started its activity on Instagram too. So I'm going to go back to my slide, should I use Instagram, but I'm going to change the title for why aren't you using Instagram? Because as I've said previously, if you're not using Instagram to promote your activity, then you're missing out on a huge audience of prospective patients. We have to embrace the future, and the present and the future is that we have changed our habits, and the way we're shopping, we are watching movies, we are working, we are chatting with friends is changing. So we have to embrace the future. I said, if you ask me that if Instagram is a good tool for surgeons, I can tell you that Instagram is a very good tool to communicate and to keep in touch with surgeons from all over the world, but it gives you a unique way of communication with your patients. So I put my like for Instagram for surgeons, and thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Julia. Okay, are you happy to start with the Q&A session already?
Okay, so we have some questions from the audience. I know we are really running out of time, but if we have, Gemma, do you think we have time for one question for each one of the speakers?
Absolutely, yes. We still have 70 participants with us, so I'm sure we can do that.
Okay, so I have one question for Professor Stephen Wexner. One surgeon, he said he is 60 plus, and he is asking, am I late? And he wants one advice from you and about how to start to use social media.
Yeah, well, I'm definitely 60 plus, but I started it below 60, after 50 and below 60, let's say. I think, so the answer is absolutely yes, you should get started. What I would do is pick a few people to look and see some representative tweets, Dr. Lacey, Dr. Mel, Chan, Krishnan, Cortez Corral. Look at some people to see what they tweet to give you an idea of how to do it. For Twitter, perhaps somebody else can talk about some of the other platforms, but the one principle remains the same. It's been said already today. Limit it to professional activity because it's publicly discoverable, number one. Number two, do not give any specific patient advice ever. Number three, never put anything on any social media platform that shows a patient or part of a patient unless you have some very explicit written permission from that patient to do so. Even then, I would be reluctant. Limited to words or photos that don't show a patient or any kind of other information. Even though you can delete a Facebook post or an Instagram or perhaps Instagram too, but also a LinkedIn post or a tweet, it is still, once it's there, it's there. Even though you can delete it, it's already in public domain. So think before you post. But I think the short answer is it's a wonderful way for you as a senior surgeon to mentor younger surgeons, get to know people around the world who you wouldn't otherwise meet. As has been said by Professor Mayol and Lacey, with this new environment now, it's even more important that we stay current, we stay in communication. Physical distancing is not social distancing, and Professor Barrow, who Manish kindly showed her photo, she always says that it's not social distancing. We want to remain in communication. So my answer to you is social media is a great way, it's a mandatory way to remain in communication while physically distancing and not going to meetings. We can't. Meetings are canceled. There are no meetings. Flights are canceled. There's hardly any flights. So we use social media to interact. It's also a great educational source. I find myself hitting the hyperlinks and the embedded bit.ly links and taking me to articles and journals I would not otherwise read, and becoming very well informed, as well as about meetings going on around the world. We've been tweeting, as have others, about this very meeting today and conveying points to people who are with patients and can't be working right now, right? They can't be with us right now, rather, because they're clinically engaged, or maybe it's the middle of the night where they are. But they can discover what we said. So for all those reasons, please get engaged.
Absolutely, very wise words, and thank you very much for your answer. It's I think that, as you said, it's never late, and it's a very good opportunity to mentor other surgeons and to keep updated. Absolutely. We have another question for Professor Antonio De Lacy. Personally, I'd like to say congratulations for your work during this pandemic, for the AIS channel work during the pandemic. It's been outstanding. The amount and the quality of the contents that you provided to surgeons all over the world about COVID-19. So congratulations. And the question is, one surgeon has been very interested about the concept of telesurgery, and he is asking about the requirements for being telementored in hospital.
Okay, thank you, Delia, for your question or your comment. But let me repeat I think for the third time, say the numbers that the quality is not related, is not, thanks to me, it's thanks to you, because a lot of you are involved in those meetings. People, people from China, people from the United States, from Italy, probably the hottest, places in the world due to the COVID-19. And I think, with the support of some industries like Johnson & Johnson, etc., we created the COVID-19, and that was the reason. Answering or trying to answer your question about telesurgery. Okay, telesurgery now is a very simple method, because if you saw into the image, now we have an equipment. It's a quite inexpensive equipment, and it's just a plug and play. So you have this, and that is quite small. You just plug and you can play. And we do the telementoring, and at the same time we call it revestration. That means, for example, when the expert is operating and is asking questions to the young surgeons. That is the reason, because due to this pandemic situation, you can make, some different operations around the world made by the experts, and at the same time, you can mentor other surgeons. The advantage of revestration is many societies, you cannot do live surgery, but you can record the surgery, and after you can make comments, as we did in several cases with all of you. At the same time, you can help. It's like a phone call. So if you have the number, I can call, please, Steve, Benki, Manis, Julio, or Delia, I need help, or I need your advice to follow with this operation. And that's it. It's a very simple method, probably easier than a phone call, and you can have images in your mobile. Of course, when we have in the worldwide, the expansion of the 5G, we will be absolutely better. But at the moment, you can do with the 4G without any problem.
Thank you very much. So it's almost every hospital around the world could benefit from this approach of telesurgery.
Correct. Correct.
So there's one question for Julio Mayol, and this is they have found very interesting all this story about SOMI for surgery communities, and they want to know what was your aim when you created SOMI for surgery? Your motivation.
Thank you, Delia, for the question. It was just for fun. It was just to connect people. If we want to tackle complex situations, if we want to tackle complex problems, we need just one surgeon, just one person is not enough. We need connected brains. We need brain power to tackle complex situations and complex problems. And there are many questions out there, and there are not enough people connected to run research to generate good questions. And that was the main aim of creating SoMe for Surgery. Let's connect people from all over the world with different perspectives to generate new questions, and then we will find some answers.
Thank you very much, Julio. Very interesting. We have another question for Professor Menis-Chand, and he is a very active, he's professor of surgery, he has very active activity, and he travels a lot, and people want to know how to manage your time, to have time enough to post on social media. How do you do it?
Well, the good thing about posting on social media is you can do it in transit. So if you are traveling a lot or moving around, you can send tweets very quickly or make posts very quickly. I think it is an important question. So we must realize what our base is, and our base is that we are surgeons. And you must continue to try and perfect your art and treat your patients well and learn new techniques and perfect your technique. And without all of that, I mean, it really doesn't matter what you're posting if you are not trying to master your craft and innovate. And I think the examples that we have here on the panel with Julio, Steve, and Antonio, the reason why they are able to reach so many in their audience is because they are masters of their craft, and so that's the important thing, to be doing that as your base. But time management is difficult, to be able to throw yourself into education, whether that be attending meetings or speaking at meetings rather, as well as your patients, I think is difficult. Planning, and I learn from many of the members on this panel and other mentors of mine of how to do that, and that is a continual learning process of how to do that. Clearly, you can use more energy when you're a little younger, and you're able to perhaps throw yourselves into things a little bit more. It's a bit like being a soccer player. You can run up and down the pitch as much as you can when you're in your late teens and early 20s, but by the time you get into your 30s as a soccer player, you then learn to position yourself better on the pitch so that you don't necessarily need to run as much. And I think that planning and experience greatly helps, and that's something that I'm learning from my mentors around me.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your advices. Sure, they have found it very, very useful. And the last question is for Professor Manu Krishnan. As you have said, you are active on almost all the platforms, and many surgeons are asking if is it possible to share content at the same time in different platforms to optimize your time. I don't know if Benki.
Can you hear me now? Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
So the question for you.
Yeah, I heard the question. So yes, there are certain platforms like Hootsuite will manage multiple platforms for you. So they charge. There is a free one for one or two, I think, but most of them charge. So each profile, so they give you, say you pay $30, for example, and they'll manage 10 profiles. It could be 3 pages from Facebook, 2 pages from Instagram, and 2 pages or Twitter account, and or your LinkedIn professional page. So basically works out to 10, and then that's how they manage. So they will but you give them access to post. So that's a cause for concern, but usually it's fine apparently. And so there are professional management platforms which can do it for you.
That's great. That's great. Okay, so we are really run out of time. Thank you very much for all the speakers. Thank you very much to all the surgeons who has joined today. And this webinar, I think, is the best demonstration of the power of social media. As Professor Stephen Wessner said, most of us, we met through social media, and we become friends, and we started collaborating. Thank you very much, because I have seen that you have been answering on the chat. But if you have any additional question, you can find us on Twitter or on other social media, and there you can ask your questions for us to ask there. So thank you very much for all of you. Thank you very much to European Society of Surgical Oncology for hosting this event, and EYSAC. Thank you to all of you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Julia. From ESSO and from my part as well, to say thank you to all of you for taking the time today to do the webinar and to share your experiences. I know that everyone's going to greatly appreciate it. And Delia, I've also had a special message for you from Laura. Laura Lorenzon is the ESSAC chair of ESSO, and she just wanted to congratulate you on organising this meeting and for bringing together the outstanding faculty of global leaders for an ESSAC event, and especially in a time when we're struggling with social distancing. You know, it's really a wonderful thing to do. So I just wanted to make sure I pass that message on to you as well. So thank you.
Very kind words from the chair of EYSAC that I really appreciate. Thank you, Gemma. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Well, thank you. As we can tell, that's the end of the meeting today. If obviously anyone has any questions or anything, they can reach out to us, he has already said, on social media, but also to me by email and what have you as well. And I sincerely hope that we see many of you at another ESSO event soon. So yes, thank you very much for your time today. It's really appreciated.
Thank you all. See you soon.
Thank you, everybody. Take care.
Thank you. Take care.
Forward. Take care. Stay well. Stay well.
Stay well.